Evan had lived on Star Station Helios for almost 2 years, and during that time he had repaired more machines than he could count. Every day he worked long shifts fixing damaged drones, broken security panels, and old communication lines. He was one of the few humans on the station, and most alien workers depended on him whenever something metal stopped moving. Some called him the most patient engineer on the station, but the truth was simple. He worked too much, slept too little, and always tried to finish one more task before resting. In his small room on Deck 5, his tiny alien maid Lyra worked quietly. She came from the Feliari species, small winged people who stood no taller than a human hand. They were careful by nature, always polite, always gentle. Lyra had been assigned to him by station management, partly because Evan's room became messy after long repair shifts, and partly because he was one of the few humans who treated tiny alien workers with respect. Lyra liked her job because Evan never shouted at her, never scared her, and never commanded her in a rude voice. Instead, he thanked her every time she brought him food or cleaned his table. Even though she was small, he always spoke to her like she mattered. Many larger species ignored the Feliari or treated them like simple assistants, but Evan looked at her like she was a person with value. She admired him in silence. She never told him that, of course. Feliari did not speak boldly. They kept feelings tucked behind their wings. But she watched him work, saw how he repaired heavy machines alone, saw how he smiled gently at her when she entered his room. She felt safe around him. That night, the lights on Deck 5 were dim because the station ran on nighttime power mode. Lyra finished her tasks early. She cleaned the floor of Evan's room, arranged his tools neatly on the table, and left a small note saying his dinner was kept warm in the unit. She planned to go home, but then she remembered something important. She had fixed Evan's personal communicator earlier using her tiny tools. She wanted to return it before he slept, so he would not be without it in the morning. The communicator was light for her, but she carried it with both hands as she flew slowly toward his door. The hallway was quiet, the soft hum of station engines echoing far below. She reached the door and hesitated. She normally knocked before entering, but she assumed he was asleep at that late hour. She thought delivering the communicator quietly would be helpful, so she tapped the door panel and entered. Inside, the room was dark, except for a small lamp on the floor. Lyra expected Evan to be resting on his bed. Instead, she froze when her eyes adjusted. Evan was sitting on the floor, his back against the wall, breathing hard. A damaged security drone lay broken beside him. His left arm was bleeding, and he held it tightly with his other hand. The floor had scratches and scattered metal pieces around him. Lyra's wings trembled. She dropped the communicator in shock and covered her mouth with both tiny hands. From her viewpoint, human wounds looked much worse than they actually were. To her, it seemed like he might collapse at any moment. Evan noticed her and tried to smile, even though his face looked pale. "Lyra?" "Hey," he said softly, as if everything was normal. She flew closer without thinking. Her heartbeat raced so fast she felt lightheaded. When she landed on the floor near him, she looked up at his face with wide, worried eyes. You are hurt," she said, her voice shaking. "It's okay," Evan replied, trying to sound calm. "The drone malfunctioned. One of the magnetic arms snapped and hit me. I just need to patch it." "You should be in the medical bay," Lyra said immediately. "It's only a cut," Evan responded. "I didn't want to wake the med team. They work harder than I do." Lyra could not believe his words. His arm was bleeding, the broken drone was still smoking slightly, and he was sitting on the floor trying to repair it instead of taking care of himself. Humans were known for their physical strength, but they were also known for being stubborn. Evan was proving both right in the same moment. She took a deep breath and forced herself to stay steady. She was small, but she was not helpless. "I will get help," she said firmly. "No, wait," Evan said quickly. "Please don't. I just need a minute. I don't want everyone worrying." But Lyra didn't listen to his attempt to minimize his pain. She flew around him, searching for something she could use. She grabbed a clean cloth from his tool shelf, struggled to carry it because it was large compared to her size, and dragged it across the table. Evan reached to help her, but she shook her head. "No, you should not move," she said with surprising authority. Evan blinked in surprise. He had never seen her raise her voice, not even a little. She was always quiet and polite. But now, she acted with courage that did not match her size. It made him feel strangely touched. She tore a small piece of the cloth using a sharp tool, then flew to his arm. Her tiny hands pressed the cloth onto his wound. She was so small that her whole body leaned into the task, and Evan almost laughed from how determined she looked. "It's okay, Lyra," he said again, but more gently this time. "I promise. It looks worse than it is." "You are bleeding," she insisted. "You should not fix machines like this." He sighed, but he didn't argue. Lyra was right, and he knew it. She looked around again, noticing the drone. "Why were you working at night?" she asked quietly. "You already repaired many things today." Evan hesitated. He didn't want to worry her or anyone else. But Lyra's eyes showed real concern. And he felt she deserved an honest answer. "There's a fault spreading in some of the security drones," he finally admitted. "If it gets worse, someone could get hurt. The drones are heavy. I didn't want the small workers to deal with the danger, so I tried to fix it fast." Lyra felt her chest tighten. So he was working at night not because he had to, but because he didn't want others, especially small species like her, to be harmed. To him, protecting others was more important than resting. "You could have been hurt badly," she whispered. "I know," he replied, "but I don't want anyone else to get injured." She didn't know how to respond. She wanted to scold him for being reckless, but she also felt warm inside. Evan wasn't a hero because he was strong. He was a hero because he cared. Her wings fluttered anxiously as she looked at his wound again. "I will call for medical help," she said finally. "Lyra—" "No," she said softly but firmly. "I will call them." Evan exhaled. There was no point arguing anymore. She had made up her mind. She flew to the door and tapped the emergency panel with both hands. A loud beep echoed. Within seconds, red lights blinked above the door. Lyra returned to Evan's side quickly, still worried he might fall over. "You didn't have to do that," Evan said with a weak smile. "You saved many lives on this station," she replied. "Let someone save you once." Her words were simple, but they hit him deeply. He didn't speak again. The door slid open and two med officers rushed in. They lifted Evan carefully, examined his wound, and placed him on a medical stretcher. One of them noticed Lyra standing on the floor near the broken drone. "Did you call this in?" the officer asked her. She nodded quietly. "You did well." Lyra looked down shyly. Compliments made her wings shiver. Evan was taken to the medical bay, but before they left, he looked at Lyra. She looked so small beside the large officers, but her eyes shined with determination and fear mixed together. He whispered, "Thank you, Lyra. Really?" She nodded again, unable to speak. Later that night, when the room grew quiet again, Lyra stayed behind to clean the scattered metal parts. Her hands still shook when she remembered the moment she saw him bleeding on the floor. Feliari hearts were fragile. Worry stayed inside for a long time. She picked up the communicator she had dropped earlier. It was still working. She held it to her chest and closed her eyes for a moment. She had always admired him, but tonight she realized something else. Evan needed someone too. Someone to watch over him when he pushed himself too far. Someone who would make sure he didn't ignore his own limits. She was small, but she had decided something big. She would not let him face danger alone anymore. Even if she was tiny, she would be there. Always. Evan woke slowly, the white light of the medical bay burning softly behind his eyelids. He could hear faint beeps from the machines monitoring his heartbeat and breathing. For a moment, he felt weightless, as if he had slept for days. Then he remembered the broken drone, his bleeding arm, and the small figure that had saved him. He opened his eyes and looked around. Lyra was there, sitting on the edge of a nearby counter. Her tiny wings folded nervously behind her back. She hadn't moved since the med officers had checked on him, and her large, round eyes were fixed on him with worry. "Good morning," Evan said softly. His voice was hoarse but calm. Lyra's eyes widened, and she let out a small sigh of relief. "You are awake," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was worried." "You saved me last night," he said. He stopped, realizing words alone could not express his gratitude. Instead, he offered her a faint smile. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Lyra felt her chest swell. She had never expected thanks like that. Humans rarely thanked her so sincerely, and certainly not like this. She wasn't sure how to respond, so she simply nodded, hiding her wings behind her small back. The med officer walked in, a tall alien with 4 arms, each covered in metallic gauntlets. "He is stable now," she said. "Your intervention was fast and precise. If you hadn't acted immediately, he could have lost a lot of blood." Lyra felt her tiny heart thump faster. I only did what I could," she muttered. The officer knelt down to her level, his many eyes softening. "For your size, you acted like a hero. You should be proud." Lyra's wings trembled again, but this time from pride. Evan watched her and felt something warm in his chest. He had always thought humans had courage, but watching someone so small, so delicate, face a crisis and act fearlessly, it made him feel a new kind of admiration. After a few more checks, the med officer left. Evan turned to Lyra. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Last night, I wasn't just fixing the drone for myself. I was trying to protect others. I didn't want anyone else to risk getting hurt, not even the small workers like you." Lyra's eyes widened. You risked yourself?" she asked softly. "For me? For them?" Evan nodded. "Yes. I thought I could handle it alone. I didn't want anyone to get hurt because of me. But I see now that I was wrong. You shouldn't have had to see that." Lyra shook her head quickly. "No, you were brave. I am the one who should have been worried. You were hurt. That is not normal for humans, is it?" Her tiny voice quivered. "I have never seen anyone ignore pain like that." Evan smiled faintly. "We have our own ways of dealing with danger. Sometimes we push too far. Sometimes we forget that others care." Lyra tilted her head. "I care," she said softly. "I care more than I can say. And now, I will never let you be alone when you try to protect everyone else." Evan's chest tightened. He had expected small gratitude, maybe a polite smile, but her words felt stronger than any human compliment he had ever received. She was small, yet her courage and loyalty were immense. The following days passed quietly, but something changed between them. Lyra insisted on helping with minor repairs in his room. Evan was surprised at her skill. Her tiny hands were perfect for delicate circuits and wires, tasks he often struggled with due to their size. Together they worked on old drones, fixing them with care, testing each function, and learning from mistakes. Their teamwork became smooth and efficient. Evan lifted heavy components while Lyra delicately repaired micro-wires, each trusting the other completely. One evening, a station-wide alert rang. A power surge had disabled multiple drones, causing minor accidents in some areas. Evan's heart sank. The repairs he had been making were meant to prevent this. He hurried to the source of the problem, but Lyra flew beside him, determined not to be left behind. "You are not going alone," she said. her wings flaring slightly. "We do this together." The human smiled faintly. "You're right. Let's save the station." They arrived at the main drone control hub to see several drones stuck in loops, some swerving dangerously toward walls and machinery. Alien workers were trying to guide them, but the drones were too heavy and fast. The room was full of tension, and many workers seemed unsure of what to do. Evan immediately started diagnosing the problem. He pointed at a panel with loose wires. "The main power conduit is unstable. I can reroute it, but I'll need precise wiring adjustments." He looked at Lyra. "Can you handle the micro-fine circuits?" She nodded without hesitation. "Leave the small wires to me," she said, flying into position. "You focus on the main conduit." For hours, they worked side by side. Lyra's small hands moved quickly, connecting tiny circuits that the human tools could never handle. Evan adjusted the larger panels, rerouted energy, and stabilized the drones. Slowly, one by one, the drones began responding correctly. Alien workers around them watched with amazement. The tiniest Maid, working with a human, was saving the station from a dangerous situation that could have caused serious damage. When the last drone finally obeyed commands, the room erupted in quiet cheers. The Feliari elders approached Lyra, their eyes wide with respect. "You are not just a maid," one said. "You are a protector of life." Evan watched her, feeling proud in a way he had never experienced. "You did it," he whispered. Lyra looked down, shy but smiling. "We did it together," she said softly. After the crisis, the station commander called Evan and Lyra to his office. "I have never seen such coordination," he said. "A human and a tiny Feliari worker saved the station today. Your teamwork is exemplary." The commander turned to Lyra. "You have earned the respect of every worker here. Your size does not define your courage." She bowed politely. "Thank you, sir. I only did what I could." The commander smiled. "That is enough. Let your actions inspire others." Back in Evan's room later that night, they both sat quietly among the repaired drones. Evan looked at Lyra and said, "You know, I always thought being strong meant lifting heavy things or fighting. But now I see strength is also about courage, about caring, about being willing to risk yourself for others. You taught me that." Lyra's wings fluttered softly. "And you taught me that even someone bigger than me can need help. Even heroes cannot do everything alone." Evan laughed softly. "I guess we are a good team then." "Yes," she said, smiling, her tiny hands folding in her lap. "The best team." In the weeks that followed, their partnership became legendary on the station. Other alien species began to notice. Humans were often seen as strong, sometimes reckless, but Evan and Lyra demonstrated something different. Humans could be courageous, patient, and selfless. They inspired the small Feliari, the alien soldiers, and even the command staff to work together in ways they had not tried before. Lyra's friends noticed the change in her. The tiny maid who once shied away from loud voices now spoke with confidence, knowing that her skills mattered. Evan continued his work as an engineer, but he no longer ignored his limits. Lyra reminded him to rest, to eat, and to let others help. Their bond grew quietly but firmly, based on mutual respect, courage, and a deep understanding that size did not measure value. One evening, as the station lights dimmed for the night, Evan looked out at the stars beyond the observation window. Lyra perched on his shoulder, tiny wings brushing his cheek. "Do you ever wonder why we are here?" she asked softly. Evan smiled, not at the vastness of space, but at the small figure beside him. "I think we're here to help each other," he said, "to make life better for those around us. That is what matters." Lyra rested her head against him. "Then we are doing it right." They stayed there in silence, watching distant stars move slowly across the black sky. The station hummed softly beneath them, safe and secure. They had faced danger, seen fear, and acted together. And in that quiet moment, both human and tiny alien realized something simple, yet profound. Courage, care, and teamwork could change everything, even across species and across the stars. The night passed quietly, but the memory of their teamwork would last forever. Lyra had come in accidentally that night and seen something she wasn't prepared for, but what she had learned, and what they both had learned, was far greater than any fear. Even the smallest being could be a hero, and even the strongest human could be inspired by tiny wings and a brave heart. And as Helios Station drifted silently through space, the two of them, human and Feliari, knew that together they could face anything. No machine, no danger, no challenge would ever seem impossible, because they had discovered the true meaning of strength, courage, care, and unwavering trust in one another.